Hey there, and welcome to season 3 of Pause and Rewind. I'm Neil, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of my podcast, which is very much created for everyone. As usual, I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. We'll be diving into the moments, the realizations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll be talking tales, anecdotes, and a little of what makes our guests tick. This is an 8-episode season going out during Pride season. And Pride really is a celebration of the LGBTQ+ community, but it's first and foremost a protest. Showing up has never been more important, and what we're seeing right now is the fight is definitely not over. Each of these guests has an amazing story when it comes to doing their own thing and how they're showing up in the world. And I'm so excited to shine a spotlight on their stories. So, with that in mind, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hello, yes, I am back with another season, and it has felt like it's only been a minute since season 2, and I finally got round to re-recording the intro for the podcast. The past intro referenced this being a new podcast, and obviously it's not new anymore. I recently celebrated a whole year of Pause and Rewind, 52 episodes across season 1 and season 2, and I'm so excited to be back with this 8-episode series for Pride season, and kickstarting it with this fantastic conversation with Jua O'Kane. Jua is my colleague at We Create Space, where they are the marketing manager. They're also the communications director for Trans Pride Plymouth. And we talk a lot about that. Trans Pride Plymouth is coming up on the 14th of June, so just next week. And we talk about Jua's love of the trans community in Plymouth, which is thriving, and the beauty of them finding that community. Against the backdrop of course some quite challenging times during their teenage years growing up in Ireland. We also chat about Jua's creativity generally. They've just published their brand new graphic novella, Road to Chimera. I'm holding a copy in my hands, and though you can't see it, please be assured this is a visually captivating and stunning piece of work that is a depiction of a spiritual journey of transness, and informed by Jua's own experiences. And I definitely urge you to go and buy a copy. It is beautiful. This conversation is packed full of punchy and powerful mic drop moments, realizations, and says so much about Jua and how they show up in the world. So please do take care of yourself while listening. We do cover some challenging topics around mental health and general the landscape for queer people and the trans community right now. But there's so much to take away from this conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. Share it with anyone you think might want to listen. Let us know what you think. And yeah, dig into it. Cheers. Hey there, welcome to Pause and Rewind. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Obviously, I get the pleasure of working with you, but I'm really, really excited to kind of dive into your story with you. But before I do, I'm going to start with a big question that I ask everyone. What does the world look like for Jua O'Kane right now?
It's busy. I'm in the run-up to Trans Pride Plymouth. I'm the communications director for Trans Pride Plymouth. And then I also work at We Create Space, so it's coming up to Pride season. So I'm double busy in that respect. But feeling good. The weather is getting way nicer down here. And I feel like living in Plymouth, it's like the winter is so, so bad, but the summer is so, so gorgeous that it makes up for it. So we're making that flip now.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that.
So lots to look forward to, particularly with Plymouth Trans Pride. You know, really exciting. It's amazing seeing all the work that you do that goes into it, through the artwork, through to you speaking at the event and such. And obviously, this comes at a time right now when it is really, really fucking needed.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, one of the things that I really enjoy about doing the work at Trans Pride Plymouth is being able to kind of bring the unique flavor of like the trans community here to life through the visuals. Because I think that, I don't know, there's something really cool about having prides have a little kind of identity of their own based on the cities that they're in. And yeah, we definitely need it right now. And I think that it is something that brings a lot of kind of hope and just happiness to our community, like moments of light. I know that the people around me here are really grateful for it. And I'm just very happy to be a part of that, to be able to bring that to people.
So you in yourself, right, bring so much light and color to people in what you do. And I'm gonna give, this is an audio podcast, so people won't see it, but I am waving around your debut graphic novella because it is beautiful, colorful, bold, so meaningful. How are you feeling about the fact that people are now holding this in their hands?
I can't believe I forgot to mention that I just put it, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm like,
I
what's the
wasn't gonna
world look
let
like
you
for me now?
forget.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's really gorgeous. I think it's weird to work on something for a long period of time and to be so close to it. You lose all sense of what it is actually like almost. And so having it go out in the world now, I occasionally get messages from people who just picked up a copy. Um, and it's such an emotional text for me. Like I cried multiple times while I was making it. But to know that other people do feel that they read it and they feel the emotion of it and they find it really moving as well. It's just kind of surreal. Uh, it feels amazing to just have the power to do that. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
exciting.
And you do it so beautifully. For those listening, are you happy to talk a little bit about it and what people can expect?
Yeah, 100%. So the book is called Road to Chimera, and it is based off of autoethnographic research that I did whenever I was studying my master's degree, and I had top surgery towards the end of my degree. And basically, I was making all of these recordings when I was kind of in recovery, trying to work out what story I could pull out of it and how to kind of communicate the lessons that I'd learned. And then what resulted is this story that is about an individual who realizes that the mountain on the horizon of their homeland is calling to them. There's like something up there that's trying to get them to come towards the mountain, and they go on this kind of pilgrimage to meet this beast that lives up there, which is a kind of enlightened, of future, like evolved version of themselves. And yeah, essentially, it's an allegory about kind of transition and how community facilitates transition. Um, it's yeah, it's really important to me, and it feels really amazing to just kind of have it out in the world and to let people use it as a framework, use it as
Yeah.
a reference point, even for their own transitions, because that's why I made it. That was what I needed, and so I hope that other people can look at it and kind of find some solace in that.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because I really do hope that people go and buy it from your website, or
Yeah.
wherever they can. But the part that stood out to me, and I know we've spoken about this before, is how the main character on this journey up the mountain meets so many other interesting characters. And although some of them are fleeting and some of them are more involved, they all play a massive part in this journey. And I know that reflects your own transition story as well. And that's the part that stood out to me as so beautiful.
Yeah, because all of those kind of character archetypes are based on people who are, my friends, my loved ones, people who kind of taught me different things along my transition, or who I was then able to teach as a result of transitioning myself. Um, and I think that that's something that we don't have so much. We don't
Yeah.
we don't have these sort of like grand stories to understand transition, or archetypes to kind of think about it with. And I feel like really like this story is kind of just a starting point. I was really inspired by the Beatrix Gates by Rachel Pollack, um, which she was an incredible like trans sci-fi writer, who wrote kind of this a similar sort of allegorical like tale of like transition. And I thought we need more of this. We need more kind of ways to think about like what this means for people and how it shapes our lives, shapes everything that we do.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I mean, thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to share my copy with people, as I see them, because I want as many people to experience this as they can. I
Yeah,
love the
that's so
form that
sweet.
you've done it in. The illustrate it's just beautiful. The wording, and obviously it's a graphic novel. There's not tons of wording, but it just speaks. It doesn't need it because the visuals just they're so stunning and captivating. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Jill. That's so sweet.
Congratulations. Like, I love it. I picked it up many times and it's sat next to me on my desk still. Um, Listen, you've had quite a few years, right? From kind of studying, top surgery, debut publication, exhibitions. You're a marketing manager, a creator, an illustrator, an artist. I always ask a question of self-care, and I want to ask, and community organizer as well. How do you look after yourself, balancing that many things?
It's a constant challenge for
Yeah,
sure. And I think it's something that I've really had to learn on my feet. I've learned the hard way from just burning out over and
yeah,
over and being like, oh, I can't keep doing this. And, I think the lessons that I've picked up over the way is, learning when to say no to things, even when you really want them, because you just don't have the capacity to do them, and not being scared that that means that you're not going to get another opportunity in the future. I think that's so hard to learn when you're coming from this sort of scarcity mindset of, I need to take everything that I can possibly get my hands on. But knowing when you need to just say, no, I can't do this. Um, this year, I planned out my whole year in advance to be like, this is what project I'm working on this month. This is when I'm doing all these different creative bits. I am that sort of person where I get pretty organizational with it. Um, and then, yeah, I don't know. I spend a lot of time now, I think, really trying to listen to my body and thinking about what do I need, because I've never really felt like an introvert or an extrovert. I'm like very much in between. And sometimes I really need that social company. Sometimes I really need the time by myself. And so it's almost this constant sort of process of, I think, listening to myself, really like being in tune with my emotions, being in tune with what my body's telling me. Um, and just trying my best. And it doesn't always work out,
yeah.
I am constantly, I think, trying to sort of better myself in terms of like, I don't want to be the person who's really stressed and busy with work all the time, but I also love doing stuff. So I feel like those two parts of me are always a little bit at war. But we're getting there.
Listen, hard relate, right? Because I'm
Yeah,
so
I
in
know.
tune with my body and I spot when something's not right. I don't always give it the attention it needs, but it's
And
yeah.
like this is the thing as well, is that since I started testosterone, the way that my body communicates to me has changed. The way
Mm.
that my emotions feel have changed. When I started testosterone and I was like, oh, I need to eat food every couple
I
hours or I'm gonna
remember you
completely
just being
crash
so
out.
hungry.
Yeah, so hungry, and I think that's one thing that I feel really grateful for as a trans person, is that I think I have quite a deep relationship there in being able to like listen to myself, because I've had to switch it
Yeah,
up. Um, so yeah, listen, really, really listen, I think is my
yeah.
takeaway.
Amazing. Yeah, I just remember when you started the gym and you were like, I just want to eat.
No, it was so, and that's the thing, is that that's the kind of response that, the worlds that we like grow up in. If you're suddenly like really feeling the need to eat all the time, like that can set off a whole thing as well that,
Yeah,
you're stressed about. But I got to the point where I was like, if my body feels this way, I should probably listen to it.
yeah,
It's not doing that for no reason.
yeah.
And so being able to trust my body, I think is one of the biggest things that I've learned in the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And there's with everything going on, it's really important that we listen to our body and we listen to what it needs and who it needs and where it needs space. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I am so excited to dive into your origin story. Are you ready to pause and rewind?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Take me back. Tell me all about Little Jua.
So, it's weird. I feel like I don't talk about myself as like a child, where even knowing that I was coming on here and having to think about myself as a child, that person almost feels a little bit separate from me. But then
Mm.
I also feel like I'm circling back around to that person. Um, so I think when I was a kid, like when I was in primary school and stuff, I was sort of like, I think I had a degree of confidence, but it was a sort of quiet confidence, and I was quite studious, but I could be outspoken. Um, and I don't know, I was really into like reading and drawing. Um, so whenever I was in primary school, I was like elected to the like student council. At one point, I did this like speech that my mum helped me write, that had all these like sort of like jokes in it. And I remember people thinking that it was really, really funny. And I don't think, again, I think back on that. I spent so many of my teenage years being like terrified of public speaking, and now I'm quite into public speaking again. So it's interesting how I feel like the last couple of years I've almost started to reconnect with my authentic personality that I had as a child. Um, because that almost feels so much more like me than who I was maybe like 5 years ago or in my teens.
It's so interesting how often that's, as you describe it, circling back comes. And I think there's so many explanations from it, right? There's the masking, there's the policing ourselves, there's the uncertainty of hormones as teens
Yeah.
anyway. But I think as queer people, it is really amplified in terms of we lose ourselves for a little bit of the middle and then start to come back.
Yeah. And I mean, I certainly, I'm not one of those trans people who like I knew it from, when I was 4 years old. I think when I was young, I just sort of wasn't thinking about it, and it wasn't something that was occurring to me. And I always had like friends who were boys, friends who were girls. And I had a sort of mix of interests. Um, so I do think that when I became a teenager, it kind of hit me like a truck. It was suddenly like, oh my God, like there's so much happening here that just hadn't been on my radar before.
Yeah.
Um, and also, like, obviously, I grew up in Northern Ireland. I grew up in Belfast. My family are Catholic, and I was raised, in a fairly like I went to Catholic school when I was in secondary school, and then I went to a mixed school. Sorry, I went to a Catholic primary school, and then I went to a mixed secondary school. Um, but yeah, I was brought up in like quite a religious environment. I went to mass like every Sunday for like my entire adolescence. Um, and for me, I think I really had this moment where like I did my confirmation and stuff when I was nearing the end of primary school. And I just kind of did it because that was what everyone did, and you didn't even think about it. And it was maybe a year or so later when I got into secondary school that everything suddenly changed. And I was like, wait, like all of these things that I've never thought about, I'm now suddenly thinking about whether it was like my religion and like my relationship with religion, or like my sexuality, my body, like all these different things that all started to pop up. And that was the point where then I started to get a lot more quiet, and I started to really, I think, kind of withdraw into myself. Because
Yeah.
again, queerness, confusion, uh, we all do this.
Yeah, there's an inner turmoil, right? Because you're
Yeah.
hearing all this stuff, and I was early adolescence, 11 to 15, in a born again Christian environment. So the inner turmoil of hearing all this stuff around me that I was wrong and the interest I had was wrong and who I felt attracted to was wrong, it created this real inner turmoil.
Yeah. And I think Northern Ireland, especially, it's something that when I moved to England, the biggest culture shock that I had, and you wouldn't think you would have a culture shock moving from Northern Ireland to England, but it was wild to me how much religion is not a central part of life in England in the way that it is Northern Ireland. Obviously, because of the conflict, and because of the way that the school systems are, it's just a part of the fabric of everyday life in a way that it isn't in England so much. And so I think that was definitely hard for me, was that it wasn't just like, oh, I don't believe in this, and that's fine, or that's something to kind of deal with. But it was also this massive shaping force in terms of like the conservative kind of politics of like Northern Ireland. Like, it's not a socially progressive space. I think even now, I remember reading a statistic a while ago that, you know, uh, the amount of students identifying themselves as trans in schools in the UK has obviously increased across Britain, like in the last several years, but it's not raised in Northern Ireland because I think the environment is just so repressive that, it's not like there aren't trans children in schools in Northern Ireland, but they're significantly less likely to come out. They're
Yeah.
significantly less likely to speak that into the world. Um, and I didn't, I spent most of my adolescence like living in what felt like complete isolation, like mentally from everyone around me, and just keeping all of this stuff inside. because I was so scared about what kind of speaking it into the
Yeah,
world would mean.
yeah. So you don't think it's changed very much since then?
I mean, I'm not in Northern Ireland
Yeah,
much these days. Like I go home every so often. But I do think that it is kind of a step behind. I mean, not that anywhere in the UK is great for trans rights right now,
yeah,
let's be real,
for
but
sure.
I do think there's a kind of extra layer of repression because of the sort of the way that religion runs through Northern Irish society.
Yeah,
And also just the kind of the political situation over there as well. Plus, the gender identity clinics across the UK are in terrible shape right now. But the one in Northern Ireland, like, does basically nothing. If people want to get surgery and stuff, they have to come over
right.
to the like mainland Britain as well. So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of Belfast. I love Northern Ireland generally, but even the queer scene in Northern Ireland, when you're out on it, it does feel a little bit hidden. It feels a little bit rebellious. It doesn't feel like it's as out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different vibe. And I think one thing that I guess I'm sad about in retrospect is that I've never had a great like connection to the queer scene in Belfast because I moved to England like kind of pretty soon after I turned 18. Um, and there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in Belfast, which
There is, yeah. It's a cool
I would
place.
I would love to kind of connect more with because I think especially like there's some really amazing kind of like I know there's a queer Ceilidh that is run in Belfast semi-regularly, and that's the kind of thing where I would love to be able to bring together like traditional Irish stuff and queerness. Like I think that's the coolest thing ever.
So cool. Yeah. You said that you used the word going home. How does it feel like home when you go home? Did you have that sense of belonging against all of those quite conflicting feelings, or is home Plymouth? And
Well,
all of
yeah.
that sense of when it comes to your tribe, when it comes to that sense of belonging. Because I know for me, Essex is not it's where I was raised, it's where I grew up, it's where my family still live. It ain't home.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel that way that like my relationship with my family has been through its sort of trials and tribulations over the years, but it's, pretty much the best it's ever been. And I do enjoy going back to Belfast, but, I came to Plymouth, I moved here for university. And I remember when I came here to interview, I was like, oh, like this just feels right. This feels right. I don't know why, but it does. And now, like, I love it here so fiercely. I get really annoyed when people who are from Plymouth like talk shit about it because I'm like, Plymouth's great. I love Plymouth. And it's because I have like an amazing community here, right? Like, I have the sort of community that I never in a million years could have even dreamed of when I was a kid. Um, I love that I can just go down um, to the sea and on a sunny day, I'll probably run into like five different people I know at least. It's got that kind of almost a village. It's like if a city was a village kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Um, and there's so much great kind of queer stuff happening here, and it feels really amazing to be able to build that as well. I think with bigger cities, it's a little harder to kind of contribute to the footprint somehow if things are already happening and you're just kind of going to them. And I do enjoy, I guess, being able to contribute to the building
Yeah.
is something
Yeah.
I'm finding increasingly.
It's always wonderful to hear you talk about your whether it's people coming to your exhibition or the different events that you're putting on, and yeah, it's lovely to hear. If we can rewind a bit, I'd love to
I was
know,
going to
is
say,
there, yeah, we've gone full in. Is there a favorite anecdote that you've heard about Little Jua growing up?
um, I think it's really cute. My mum talks about when we were in primary school, we used to have like busy books, which was like would be like a coloring book or whatever. So if you finished your work, you had something else to do. Um, and my busy book from whenever I was in my first year of school, was a coloring book that was just covered page to page, like wax crayon. Like there was not a single bit of paper visible. Um, and I don't know, like I've loved drawing, I guess, my entire life. And it's something that I just cannot imagine living without. Um, and how that happened, my neither of my parents are sort of well, they're not creatives in the sense that like my mom is actually she's really good at like sewing and like knitting and stuff. But me and all my siblings went into the creative fields. Like I'm an illustrator, my older brother is a game dev, my sister is a graphic designer, and then my little brother is a prop designer for movies. So there's something in us
That's
innately that
so
obviously just
cool.
all of us like really love to make and create things. And I feel because that's such a special thing to me, being able to look back and not always connect with the person that I look back on, but to see that and be like, that is me. That is exactly me. And
Yeah.
I've always been like that. That is, yeah, that's my favorite anecdote.
Do you remember what the dream was when you that typical question of what did you want to be when you grew up? Do you remember thinking what it might be?
I think when I was like a really little kid, I wanted to be a zookeeper. um, I was really into animals. And then I think as I got a bit older, uh, I really struggled with that because I mean, from a period of about when I was probably about 13 for then about a decade after that, I was really, quite chronically suicidal in a way that meant
Mm.
that I just could not imagine like a life for myself, like an adult life. Um, I think because I was kind of really struggling with mental illness stuff as well in my adolescence, I had this belief that I would just never be able to keep down a job, that I wouldn't be able to do that. And so I knew that I liked making art and I liked writing as well. I kind of thought, oh, maybe I could be like an author or something. But those things felt so far out of reach. I was just like, I cannot imagine how I could possibly do that. Um, so now to be like, oh, I actually just straight up combined all those things that I wanted to do. And I mean, so much of what I do now is drawing and writing and it's really funny to be in that position, to just be like, oh, it happened. It did happen. I made it happen. Um, but I never expected that I would be able to.
Yeah.
Never in a million years.
How do you feel now in the position that you are in the headspace that you're in, surrounded by community, achieving amazing things? How do you feel looking back now to that period of time as a teenager when you were feeling suicidal? And I guess, what would you say to yourself, if you could?
I think about this all the time. I think constantly about like how I wish I could convene with that
Mm.
younger
Yeah.
version of myself. And I mean, I would tell them I love them, like first and foremost. Part of me wonders, I'm like, would I even be able, would at that period of time, would I have even been able to believe if someone said, like, this is what you're going to do in 10
Mm.
years? Um, because it just felt like such a sort of distant dream. Um, but when I think back on it, when I think back on those times, I was really young and I had very little frame of reference. And,
Mm.
I started kind of having quite intense mental health problems, you know, essentially as soon as I became a teenager. Um, and at the time, I was like, why do I feel like this? Like, why does no one else feel like this? Like, what's wrong with me? And I look back now and I think, well, you didn't have any community. You couldn't be honest with anyone about who you were. You didn't even understand who you were because you had no frame of reference. Um, you were at school, like studying stuff that you didn't care about and having no free time to kind of to do the things that you wanted to do. You were really repressed. Like you didn't have, like I didn't have anything. And so now, like I think back and I'm like, oh, I wish I could give that to that younger
Yeah.
person. I wish I could gift my younger self like a trans friend because, I didn't meet another trans person until I moved to England for uni.
Yeah.
Um, and, I think a couple of years ago, whenever my parents expressed to me, they were like, oh, I just feel like you're spending a lot of time around like only trans people. And they worried about it being kind of like an echo chamber or something. And I was like, look, I hadn't met anyone who was like me until I
Yeah.
was an adult. So like, I'm really going to soak it up now.
Yeah.
Just getting to feel normal for once in my life.
Yeah. And you strike me as someone that you strike me as someone that loves your freedom, you love your creativity, and just being able to be 100% authentic you. No one's going to take that away from you now.
Right. And I think even when I was younger, like I kind of couldn't help being myself. Um, I like cut my hair short, I think whenever I was maybe like 16. And I had been really scared to do it because I'd gotten like a bad haircut a couple of years before and been like, oh God, like I needed to grow my hair out really long. Um, After feeling like that had gone so terribly. And then I cut it short and I was like, oh my God, I feel like myself actually for the first time. And I think that, I've been chasing that since that moment of like, there are things that I can do to become myself, to feel like the person that I am. And to have that alignment, it's something that I think, especially for like a lot of cis people, they don't experience that in the way that trans people do.
Yeah.
But everyone to some degree has those moments of like, oh, this is me,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah, moments of
where we
feeling yourself.
where we recognize ourselves in the things around us.
Yeah.
And I think that feeling is always really magical because I wonder about, like where that comes from, what it's born out of. If I feel this intense magnetism to like something, then I'm going to follow that, I'm
Yeah.
going to embrace that. I was really into Girls Aloud when I was younger, and the only reason was, the reason that I loved Sarah so much was because she had platinum blonde hair, and I wanted to be platinum blonde. And I've been platinum blonde now for like 10 years probably. And the moment I did it, I was like, yeah, this is me. This has always been me.
Right.
And I've always known it somehow.
It's good to see ourselves in stories, in people. Representation's important, and it's something you bring into your role as a marketer as well. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's super, super important. And I guess the difference is that cis people, yeah, they might see something and they might feel themselves, but I guess as a trans person, there's that whole massive difference between dysphoria and euphoria as well, and gender
Hmm.
affirmation that we don't experience.
Yeah. And I was talking to my girlfriend about this recently. We were thinking about, that transness is kind of being in a trans body, you learn that like home and otherness like kind of coexist,
Mm,
Like that is something that people think of as being quite separate, but like, you live in your body and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like home, but it is home. It's the only home you have.
yeah,
Um, and so being able to bring those things into alignment is absolutely just it is kind of beyond words.
yeah,
I was so scared to get top surgery and had like such a massive like mental spiral beforehand. Um, because I was so scared that I was gonna like that it would somehow be a mistake just by requisite of like reading like turf tweets online for like all of my
yeah,
teenage years. And then I did it and I was like, oh my God, why was I so, like I wish I could go back and say it's fine. Like we don't need to
yeah.
freak out about it. We don't need to be stressed about it because you're right. And if you've thought about doing something every day for years and years of your life, it does probably mean that you want to do it. You
Yeah.
don't need to keep second guessing it.
No, it's a gift to yourself, isn't it? And that you're right. It's a coming home in your body, I imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
You said that you wish you could have given yourself a trans your younger self a trans friend. And I'd like to tap back into that younger self. What was support like at the time experiencing those mental health challenges? Like did you feel supported around you? I know that people didn't necessarily understand, but could you accept the love? Were you able to let people help you?
I mean, this is the sort of, I guess, tragedy of it as well, was that I was struggling so much, but I really couldn't bring myself to talk about it. I mean, for
Mm,
one thing, with my parents, I was so, it felt like if I open up about one thing, then it's going to potentially unravel all of this other stuff that I was really trying to keep secret, that I was really kind of pushing down inside me. Um, and I mean, part of why whenever I realized that I sort of didn't really like believe in like the Catholic religion, I was really scared that like if my parents found that out, that they would like reject me about it. And then whenever I realized I was queer and when I realized I was trans, that all just compounded. Um, and I spent a lot of time, back then, like hearing stories about like queer kids being like thrown out of their homes and stuff. And I already felt like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like I can't survive by myself. Um, so I just was like, I'm going to repress all of this. I'm going to push it down. I had like a little bit of counseling and stuff whenever I was in secondary school. That was kind of useless. Like it just, because I think I wasn't even ready to understand, like I didn't fully understand what was going on. Back then, like, I had some inklings about my kind of gender stuff, but I didn't understand it and I had so little frame of reference. I feel like people don't quite understand even sometimes that, you know, in the last 10 years, like whenever I was beginning to realize I was trans and I was like a teenager on Tumblr, um, there wasn't representation of like trans masc people who weren't just kind of uh, you know, like FTM, like straight trans man generally. And I was like, that's not me. That was never me. Um, I find that, it just didn't feel like that thing existed. So yeah, I had not not a great amount of support, and I just kind of chugged along through until um, you spend your whole sort of adolescence thinking, oh, I can't, I don't know how I'm ever going to get a job. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then suddenly it was like, well, you're old enough to go to university. What are you going to do? And that was when it was really like, shit hit the fan a little bit in terms of like, oh my God, I have to get my act together and I have to try and do this. Um, and I moved to England because again, I like came to Plymouth and I thought, okay, this place seems kind of good. Uh, and I think that independence of being somewhere else, being at university, for a lot of people, that's the sink or swim moment, right?
Yeah.
And you swim, everyone swims
Yeah.
because, we're born to fight, I guess, born to like survive. Um, and yeah, it was when I was at uni that I suddenly, after like kind of still trying to deal with my mental health and it getting worse, I was like, I'm an adult, I can go to the doctor.
Yeah.
um, and I started taking antidepressants. And the mental health support at my uni when I was doing my BA was actually like really, really, really good. And the thing that made a huge difference for me was not like counseling so much as I had it was in the student support staff. There was a guy who is still one of my good friends now. Um, and it wasn't formal counseling, but it was like, if you need to just come and talk for an hour, you can do that. And he was my like kind of confidant for years, but also he was really into like mindfulness and meditation, and he did acupuncture and stuff as well. Um, and he also just really like he got me, I think, because we'd had a lot of the same kind of issues, and he sort of saw himself in me. And that relationship, was so helpful to me to not have my problems kind of treated necessarily as like a mental health issue that we're going to give you an NHS like 8 weeks of counseling for, but like a more holistic thing of how do we deal with this? You
Yeah.
know, I think for me, that was the big thing, was that everyone was, kind of trying to get me to talk about my issues and all these things. What I needed was to learn how to stop having a panic attack.
Yeah. Practical,
To
practical stuff.
Yeah, to learn how to emotionally regulate.
Mm.
And when I started to do that, that was when things really kind of changed for me in
As
combination
in,
with just,
alleviated some of the.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that was when I really felt, okay, you know, it's, we can do this, we can move forward with this. It's not a all hope is lost situation. Because I think, growing up to suddenly develop depression and to feel it so intensely, you're kind of like, is this it?
Yeah.
You have very little frame of reference for what else can be. Um, it was sort of all I knew, and I was very convinced that it was just going to have to be something that I was living with. And now I'm at the point where I'm like coming off antidepressants for the first time in it's been like 7 years, I think, since I started taking them. Um, and I can just I'm managing it. That feels really great. I think meds are great, and you know, if I need to go back on them at whatever point, that's totally fine. But I was saying this the other day that to even be in the position where I'm like, oh, I think I want to try and come off them, that's so huge progress in and of itself.
Yeah. And you'll roll with it and you know you'll be okay.
Yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
it's the confidence to be like,
Yeah.
I actually know I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's almost a superpower now to have gone through something like that. I do feel a little bit invincible, I feel a little bit like the stuff that I've been through in the last however many years. Uh, I know how to deal with all these
Yeah.
things now. So I'm like, throw whatever at me. I'm pretty sure I can take it
Yeah.
and come out the other side smiling.
I mean, I love the confidence. I mean, I'm hearing it now in your talking, but I see it in your work and I see it when you've shown
Yeah.
pictures of you speaking in front of a crowd. Like you do have, and again, like you said it as a little while, a quiet confidence. It's not
Mm.
in your face, but there's a fierceness, right? There's a quiet confidence, and you know what you're doing. Wonderful that you maintain that relationship with kind of the support worker and stuff. And you mentioned mindfulness and meditation. There is a real spirituality to so much of your work.
Mm.
It's embedded in it. And I wonder if you can talk to that a little bit, but also maybe share a little bit about where you are now with religion.
Yeah, right. So I think, I mean, it's always been, it's always been a big part of my life.
Mm.
And whenever I, moved away from it, I think I spent, several years sort of just being focused on all my other, like realizing I was queer and all of that. Um, but because it was such a foundational aspect of how I grew up, not just in that I was going to mass every week, but when you think about like the murals in Belfast, the way that the entire city is physically shaped by, a religious conflict. It's, it's there's much more to it than that, but religion is, kind of runs deeply through it. And so I did feel some degree of like this thing that shaped a big part of my life. Like it's just sort of it's gone now. And I've always loved, I think like I find religious imagery still very, very captivating. Um, but for me, like that feeling we were talking about earlier of knowing something about yourself, like with trans people, the research that I was doing on my master's, there's this really great essay called Transverberations, The Spirit Pierces the Flesh by Morgan M. Page. And in it, she writes, if we cast aside sort of medical stuff, like is transness not fundamentally a condition of the spirit? It is an understanding in yourself that you are something and you can't explain it and you can't show it to anyone else, but it is there and it is tangible in that way. That has always been super interesting to me. And so I do kind of think of transness as like a spiritual calling to some degree. Um, and historically, you do lots of work with Trans History Week, you know this, that
Yes.
like across the globe, there has been this really strong connection between gender diverse people, third genders, and sort of spiritual roles in Indigenous cultures. And that was a big part of what then made me do Road to Chimera was thinking like, I need a framework to sit within. And I don't subscribe to any kind of, organized religion. My spirituality is very much mine and it's individual and it's been shaped by, different sort of experiences that I've had. Um, but I want to make something that I can kind of sit under that's like, this is my world. This is my spirituality as a sort of image because I'm a visual person, um, and also because I grew up around like rosaries and like my granny had like a font on the wall like when you came into our house to bless yourself with. Catholicism is a very tactile religion. It's about like artifacts and relics and I think that just obviously had a huge kind of shaping part on me. But I wanted to make the spiritual kind of tangible, um, especially in regards to my transition. And so that's one thing that is really, I think, fun and unique, I guess, about the book is that there's these artifacts in it that are real things that I made on my master's degree, that are they're like photo collaged in. Because I think we need that. We need, you know, ephemerality is great. I love the ephemeral, big fan of the ephemeral, but we need the sort of physical to
Mm.
grind us a little bit. Um, and I think in the 70s, feminists were really there was quite a lot of feminists who were into uh, looking at like the sort of the divine feminine and finding this kind of internal authority because so often like religion has like cast aside like women aren't like respected the same way in the church. And so for me, that spirituality is a return to like an internal authority because I spent such a long time thinking, oh, I'm having these feelings, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Everyone says I'm wrong. The whole world says that I'm wrong and that I'm going to like mutilate myself if I do this. And then I had top surgery and I felt more at home than I ever had. And I was like, I need to trust myself. I need
Yeah.
to trust the person that I am. And I need to trust that voice that's in me. And that circles back to, the feeling of like listening to my body. Because I feel like my body's been telling me things for years and years that I just was kind of pushing away. Um, so yeah, that's a bit of a
Well, it's
a
just, and you can,
ramble, but
no, it's not a ramble at all. And I'd urge anyone listening to go and look at your website, read the book, and you will see all of the dots joined together in this
mm,
world that you've created, from the physical things that you created through to how those are represented in the book, and the stickers that you produce and everything. You see, it's very cohesive. It's beautiful and it's bold, and some of it's really out there, but it's also cohesive.
hmm Yeah, I think you really appreciate that. I think, you know, I remember being at a party years ago and my friend had brought her like a guy she was dating and he met me for the first time. And the thing that he said to her after meeting me was, what really knows what he likes? That was the impression that he got, is that it's like I know what I like and I know what I don't like.
Yeah,
And I think that my sort of visual art is an attempt to sort of like really manifest this specific thing that like lives inside me,
yeah,
that I need to put it down on paper. It's the thing that I do, that I feel the calling to do
yeah,
constantly and will probably feel the calling to do forever. So it feels really nice that people can look at it and go like, that's yours,
yeah.
they can tell.
Yeah, and don't ever lose it. Like
Yeah.
please don't. But even in the way that you dress and the way that you style yourself and stuff, it's all echoed throughout all of it. It's very distinctive.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I was in secondary school, I think when I was probably about 16 or 17, I was getting really annoyed that like all the clothes in the shops were like, it was winter and they were like really boring colors. And it was then that I remember I made this sort of like vow that I was gonna really make an effort to like dress in color. And I've been doing that for years now. And I've kind of, you know, I used to do it way more crazy. There's photos of me at like Belfast Pride like years ago with like neon highlighter hair and like in an entirely like hot pink, blue, and neon yellow outfit. And I'm not quite there anymore. I think I've settled a little bit. Um, but yeah, I love being able to look at stuff and know, like, to see myself in it. I think because I just spent such a long time going like, I don't know who this person is. Um, and that again is why it's so special to whenever I do see those kind of echoes of myself in whether it's like baby pictures. My mum's actually really into color as well, and she used to dress me in like, I think there's a photo of me in this like all green little sort of like summer set with like yellow sunglasses and like flip flops and stuff. And that's basically what I wear now.
Yeah.
Like that's still kind of my vibe.
I know you're a fan of yellow, but also a bit of a pastel king as well. Like
Yes, I
love the love of
am. I
pastels.
am.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
a pastel.
I'd love to dive into early career because obviously know what you do now, the many, many different things. But what did early career look like?
Well, yeah, this is the thing is that I went to uni and that was my first moment of, I feel, really proving myself of like, okay, I can exist, I can live as a person, sort of independently. And then I graduated into COVID and I moved home for a year and I was a complete mess. Like I was in the worst kind of mental health position I've been in ever. Um, and by the sort of the end of that year, I was like, right, I'm going to go back and do my master's because honestly, it was like I think a lot of people do a master's because they don't know what the hell they're doing. And it really served me well. It really did serve me well. But I knew that also to do the master's, like I needed to work alongside it. And the only work that I'd done before then was kind of freelance bits here and there. And it was during that summer that my friend sent me a post that We Create Space was looking for like an intern, essentially. It was like a 6 month contract, or even like, yeah, I think it was 6 months. Um, and I applied and I had a video call with Michael, and he loves to talk about this still, that the person that was on that call and the person that I am now are like completely different people, that my confidence has just skyrocketed. But I was very, very lucky, I think, that I got that job. And, I did the sort of 6 months interning, and then Michael asked if I would stay on, and I obviously said yes. And I was able to do that job alongside my master's, and I learned just so much, so much. Um, it started off that I was just like doing some graphic design bits and like videos, and then gradually, like, I've gotten more and more into the sort of marketing aspect of it. it exposed me to so many people. You know, I remember I used to be editing like webinars that we'd done, and I was like, wow, this Eva Echo is really someone. Like,
Yeah.
I need to go check her out. You know, it exposed me to just this entire world of people who, you know, really inspired me. And I'd never, you know, really thought of myself kind of doing work within activism. And, you know, even when I started to do stuff with Trans Pride, it was more of a like, oh, this is a fun thing we're putting on. Um, but yeah, it's really kind of amazing how that job has, I mean, helped me grow an incredible amount and exposed me to so much. But it's also like it made so much sense, you
Yeah.
know? It was kind of the perfect role for me. Um, and I mean, it means I got to meet you, got to meet like lots of just really
Yeah.
fab people.
Yeah, there's a whole community, a real sense of belonging that comes from working here and being part of it all. And there's we get to do the corporate side of things, we get to do the activist side of things. It's really all encompassing.
Yeah, it's such a good melting pot.
Yeah.
And, you know, also just in terms of uh, you know, some of the, I think from being exposed to the different people in the collective and stuff, I began to realize that I had meaningful things to say. I think that not just that like I was kind of, you know, adept as like an illustrator, but that I was kind of on like decent at other things as well. That I have you know, kind of a role to play. It definitely has just skyrocketed my confidence in so many ways, and I think really been a huge shaping force in kind of the position that I'm in now.
I love that you've grabbed so many opportunities as well. Like, it's, you know,
Hmm.
I've only been at WeCreate Space for a year and a half now, actually, over a year and a half now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But looking at you, I remember when I first spoke to you about doing a speaking gig, right? And you were quite like apprehensive about it. And now you recently took part in our book club to talk about Road to
Hmm.
Chimera. You've hosted a space for dialogue. You've been on a couple of panels. Like, that's a massive shift in itself in a short time.
Yeah, and I mean, because yeah, I think for a long time it was like I was like, oh, like you know, I would manage the speaker collective page on the website, and I'd be adding the speakers on and all of that, and then suddenly to be like, oh, do you want to speak? Um, you know, I think I often sometimes still even I don't think of myself as having important things to say in the corporate space.
Mm.
But I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with We Create Space is that like the grassroots perspective is really valuable
Yeah,
in a corporate space.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it does feel really cool to have had a job where I've been able to grow in so many different ways, in like really unexpected ways as well, you know,
yeah.
things I never would have imagined.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's amazing to see, for you and lots of other people. But yeah, I think it shines a light on the fact that everyone's experience is valid. Everyone has a story, and it's stories that need to be heard. It's the reason I launched this podcast.
Yeah. And I think we're conditioned to think that, you know, our stories don't matter, that the things we have to
Mm.
say don't matter. Um, and so there is a process of unlearning that and going, I actually have, you know, I have a point of view. I have a kind of an important one. I have things to say that people should listen to. You know, that is a thing that you have to unpick in your own brain. We're so used to making ourselves smaller, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, none of that moving forward. I love it. I love it. Looking back then, obviously you've been through quite a lot, right? And I'd love
Yeah.
to know, and this is obviously a measurement that is really hard to say, but what does happiness feel and look like now when you think about where you've come from?
Mm. Well, something that I've found myself recently when I'm lying in bed at night, if I kind of can't sleep, if I'm struggling to get to sleep, the thing that I always come back to is like, I am so grateful to be in the place that I'm in right now. I am so just overjoyed to have the life that I have. I never expected that, you know, that I could be trans and have like a positive relationship with my parents. I never believed that I could, you know, work a job, just full stop, but also, you know, work a job and have a fulfilling creative practice, that I could have community, that I could, you know, feel loved and respected in that community as well. Um, all of those things feel legitimately surreal sometimes. Um, and I'm glad that I feel so much gratitude for that. I think my worst nightmare is when I think about people who, sort of die with regrets or feeling like they didn't sort of do the things that they want to do. I am really doing, I feel, everything that I want to do and making it happen. And I'm just kind of so excited for how that's going to change. I think about my relationship to my sort of younger self now, and then I imagine me 10 years from now and how they'll think about me. And that makes me really excited, to wonder what that person's going to be. Because I mean, I've only been on testosterone for 2 years as well. So I have no idea what that person's even going to look like, really. There's a
So
lot of fun and excitement in
yeah. It's coming through. It's coming through.
that.
Is there someone who's kind of shaped you the most along the way that you'd kind of like to give a bit of a nod to?
Yeah, well, Ethan, who I mentioned earlier, who was that sort of support that I had in uni, he's done so much for me, and I really appreciate him. And then my girlfriend Lou, I think meeting her like really changed my life. I had met other trans people at that point, but she was the first, she was my first like T for T relationship, and she taught me, I think, optimism. Um, like I do think that I was a bit of a pessimist before I met her. And I met her and she has been through so much. Like, frankly, she makes my story look like a cakewalk, I think. But she has this incredible, incredible ability for hope and optimism that is so infectious to me. And I think I met her and I was like, I like pessimism is so lame. Like I never want to be like this. I never want to feel like there's no hope. Um, the two of us have been through so much together, and she is so kind of inspiring and creative. And so much of the work that I do, is built with her. It's built through conversations that we have. She's basically an encyclopedia for anything everywhere, like film history, horror, like folklore, all these different things. So she really is my partner in crime. And, I can't imagine what my life would look like if we hadn't met. So that's definitely my shout out.
Big up, Lou.
Big up Lou. I love
But
her.
hey, my final question for this segment is this. Looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
Oh, um, I think finishing the book, finishing Road to Chimera, I went through a period of a couple of years there where I like kind of grew up making comics, like and posting them online. Like that was what I was doing whenever I was feeling really incredibly isolated as a teenager, was that I would make comics and I would post them on Tumblr and people would reblog them, or they would send me messages saying like, oh, I really feel this. It was generally mental health kind of stuff. And that was a big part of my life back then. It was one of the only things I really had. Uh, and then I started to really struggle with making comics a couple of years ago. And I just thought, I don't think I can maybe do this anymore. I just don't know if it's the right medium for me. Um, and it was late last year that I was like, right, I'm going to try and make this as a book. I'm going to do it like I had sort of written it as prose and like made the different like physical elements when I was doing my master's. But I was like, I want to do a fully illustrated book. And that was something that I just for so long was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. And I did it under such an intense deadline as well. I crunched it out in literally like 3 months. Um, and I like it. I think it's pretty good. Like the stuff I would change about it, obviously, if I could be arsed. But I think I did good with that one. And it's really nice to see it out in the world. And then I think the other thing is just being a part of kind of building this really thriving trans community in Plymouth. People sometimes ask, they're like, who don't know, they're like, oh, there are a lot of trans people in Plymouth. And I'm like, yeah. And we're like all besties, we've got a really great vibe going. Um, I think being able to do the sort of branding for Trans Pride in Plymouth and make it feel so unique to us, so specific to like our kind of voice. I love the idea that people are potentially going to be able to look back in 20 years and go like, oh, they were really doing their own thing. Like I was doing the branding and I was like, I am not just slapping the trans pride flag colors on there. Like I want to mix it up a little bit. And so being a part of that and being able to see people kind of come out and just, feel the joy at our events, that is kind of priceless. Community building stuff is really exhausting and it can be really thankless at times. But then, the event comes together and you go, wow, this was so worth it.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Yes, let's go.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
So I think I mentioned The Beatrix Gates by Rachel Pollack earlier. That book is, really, I think, set me on a path. And then also Hold the Girl, Rina Sawayama's last album. It's one that I do come back to. Like, it's her like really dealing with her like childhood trauma, and like it really speaks through. I think it's such a like candid, emotive piece of kind of music. Yeah, I think it's really powerful.
Very cool. Very cool. Some killer songs on it.
Yeah, it's some really, really heavy hitters.
Yeah, I love it. What's a saying you live by and one that you'd put in the bin?
So I feel like I don't know that I have like a saying that I necessarily put in the bin, but the one that I kind of currently like live by is like the only way forward is through. We can't kind of veer off and like try to avoid things. Like I think that's been a big lesson in my life, is that like I have to face things kind of head on. And then the other one that I say to myself, and I say it to myself when I'm dancing on a night out, is I set the tempo. Because when I'm in a room and I'm like, I'm doing my thing here. Like I'm in my moment. And I try to bring that like into my life in general, that it's like I set the tempo for my life. I am the one who kind of, makes the decisions about this stuff. And if I want to slow down, I can slow down. And if I want to speed up, I can speed up.
Oh, there is so much in there to unpack, right? There's that confidence and that vibe that you have, but it says so much about the fact that you make your own happiness as well. Like you're in control of your responses. You're in
Yeah.
control of how you let other people affect you. There's so much in
Hmm.
there. It sounds
I'm glad
just
you like
like
that one.
it sounds just like a quip, but it's not. It's really punchy.
Yeah, it's got levels to it.
Yeah.
It's a good sort of like mantra, I think, for me.
I love that as a mantra. I think you need that as a tattoo.
Yeah, actually that might be really
I
dope.
set the tempo. Love it. What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
Probably top surgery. Probably just that moment of, you know, like it did feel like a proper like hero's journey moment of like, oh, I am exactly who I thought I was the entire time. Y'all tried to trick me. Like they tried to get me. The systemic transphobia will make you doubt yourself. But at the end of the day, got to the top of the mountain and was like, yep, that's me.
Fuck yeah. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Ooh, I think isolation, creation, transcendence.
Wow. Wow.
Transcendence is also our Trans Pride Club night name, which I'm like, but it's such a good word. I'm like, that is the feeling of like transcendence is what I kind of carry with me so often now.
And is the order of those words deliberate?
Yes, absolutely. That I
Yeah.
think that is the process of my life, is
Yeah.
this feeling of like just being so alone and then making the transcendence, right? Creating the sort of conditions under which to thrive.
The world in which to
Yeah,
thrive. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Let's fast forward a little bit. I want to stay on that, but let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up? Obviously, Trans Pride Plymouth.
Yes, Trans Pride is the 14th of June and it's going to be a certified banger as always. I feel like it just keeps getting better year by year. And yeah, I'm so excited. It is just genuinely my favorite day of the year. And I didn't know that I could feel that way about Pride until we started running this one. So yeah, really excited for that. And then I am planning on having a new book out this winter. Me and Lou are actually working on a comic that we started writing. Like we started thinking of the concept a couple of weeks after we met, and it's been in the back of our heads for a couple of years. And we were like, let's do that. Actually, I think it's time to do it.
What a bonding
So I'm
experience as well.
Yeah, and she's such a good writer is the thing that I feel like when I'm trying to write stories, I struggle a bit. When the two of us are doing it together, it feels like it just manifests so easily. But yeah, so I'm tabling at Thought Bubble comic convention in Harrogate in November, which is like the big indie comics stitch in the UK. And yeah, so I'm planning to get that new book done for then, which I'm quite excited about.
That's so excited. Watch this space.
Watch the space.
In terms of Trans Pride Plymouth, like how can people get involved? How can people support you?
Yeah, so
I mean,
Transfer Plymouth.
attend,
Yeah,
obviously.
attend. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. This year we're like really trying to do more events outside of Pride as well. So like I think next week we're doing a sword fighting workshop because someone on our team is like really into like historical European martial arts, Hema, and was like, shall we just get the girls together for some sword stuff? Um,
I mean, that's an act of rebellion when you think about what's happened with sword fighting recently as well,
right,
right? Fucking
right.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's a proper like so that's the thing is that I think we did like a pole class like a couple months ago, and I think just like we're trying to create like opportunities for trans people to like move their bodies in
Yeah.
joyful ways, because I think that's so important. We're often so, disassociated from our bodies as a result of the people that we are. So being able to just be like, we're going to do something fun together in a space where like everyone's on the same wavelength. Um,
Yeah.
it feels great.
Yeah. These spaces, these activities are for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're for us. Like, and they're also like, I do feel that it's so trans to be like pole workshop, sword fighting. We were talking about doing some wrestling at some point, maybe. So like it's really these are like the kind of random sports that trans people want to do.
Love, love. Hell yeah. What brings you joy?
Drawing, just like being in community again is like the best thing ever. Um, Dancing for myself, like being really in the moment. That's something that I've like realized recently is that I do low key love to go to the club like every so often and just go ham.
Go ham. Yes.
Yeah, we're similar in that way, I think.
Oh yeah. Get me on that. Get me on that dance floor. I would say, 6 years sober, but still smashing it on the dance floor. Like, yeah, I love it. I
Doing
dance
it like the best
everywhere
of
though.
them.
I don't just reserve it for the dance floor. Like, you dance. Everyone should dance everywhere.
Yeah, it is something that I think I need to probably try and bring into my like day-to-day life more.
Yeah.
Because it's not something I would just like do by myself generally unless I'm out, but it's like I should. It makes me really happy.
What is a hit that's guaranteed to get you on the dance floor?
Oh my God. All I can think about at the moment is Lady Gaga Mayhem record because I've been listening to it so much since it came out. And I'm going to see her in October. So I'm like, can't wait for that. But I think Love Drug from the new album I love so much. It's got that like old kind of like heady like disco vibe. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a good decent album. I've still not watched the Coachella performance yet, but I need to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of magical.
it looks magic. She is magical.
She is.
She is. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of her country music, actually, of the country sounding music. Like You and I is one of
Yeah.
my favorite songs in the world.
Oh yeah. I love
Um,
I love the range of it.
yeah, for sure. Joanne, top album. Um, I'd love to know, do you have any takeaways for anyone wanting to do something inclusive, create an inclusive space? What are you thinking?
I think like you can start doing this work right now. You don't have to wait for permission from anyone. Frankly, no one's going to give you permission.
Mm,
You have to go out and kind of do it. And the thing that I've learned both with We Create Space and Trans Pride is just you learn as you go.
yeah,
You pick up so much from just you'll learn so much more from doing something than you ever will from like trying to sort of do all the research beforehand to make it perfect. and, you know, connecting with the people around you and soaking up everything you can from them, integrating yourself in those communities where people are already doing work and saying, hey, can I shadow you even, you know, you have the opportunity to make it happen.
Thank you. My final question for you is this. Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
I think there is a place for you, whether you find it yet or not. And if you are looking and you can't find it, then it's time to build, because, you know, others definitely need it too. You know, I think that when I think back on my sort of journey, you know, I never expected to have the community that I have and the life that I have. But even less so would I have expected that I was so active in creating it myself. I didn't just wander into it, you know, I made the things that I needed happen. And that's the most rewarding thing ever, you know, to think, oh, I did do all this, didn't I? You know, this is my space and I made it happen. And like my happiness was something that I created.
What a note to finish on. I always love our chats. I always love our catch-ups, but I
Yeah.
really, really, really loved this. Thank you for being a brilliant guest on Pause and Rewind. Keep setting the tempo. I
Will
love it.
do.
I love it. I'll see you soon.
Oh,
Thanks
thank you
so
so much,
much.
Neil. Thank you.
You know, editing this conversation and re-listening to it was just as magical as having it the first time round. And there were so many moments that stood out to me. I've got tons of notes with those, you know, one-liners, really punchy, powerful pow-pow moments that came out. When Hua said, "I wish I could give myself a trans friend," when talking about their younger self, and certainly the sentiment around, I have the community that I never ever in a million years would I have dreamed of when I was a kid. So many beautiful moments and realizations, and Hua's gratitude and love for their community and their chosen family really shines through. And the way that they're reconnecting with little Hua now and feeling much more like themselves than 5 years ago in their teens, and circling back round to little Hua, and that quiet confidence, quiet but fierce confidence. I set the tempo. That was one of my favorite moments. And you know what? They really, really do. The deliberate order in which Hua listed the three words that they used to describe themselves and their origin story: isolation, creation, and transcendence. And what a beautiful journey that is. And we see that journey depicted in Road to Chimera and Hua's story and the way they tell it. So I am so grateful for this time with you, Hua. Thank you for showing up. I wish you and the whole team at Trans Pride Plymouth and everyone attending the best time next Saturday. I have no doubt it's going to be amazing. The work that you all put into it is phenomenal and makes such a difference to your thriving community. So thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you think. Please do rate, comment, subscribe, and share it. Share these conversations with everyone. They deserve to be heard. Stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind. 7 more episodes in this season. Get into it. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.